So, in these approaches to study of human geography, we are broadly categorizing into two, that is traditional approaches and contemporary approaches. Familiarize with the current approaches in human geography, examine the traditional approaches in human geography, understand the contemporary approaches in human geography, understand the changing trends in the study of human geography. The development of geographical thought is an interesting branch of historical studies. Similar to the other social sciences, human geography has been developed out of the necessity to explain certain aspects of human beings, social, cultural and economic environment. Physical geography and human geography working together, interdisciplinary research projects in order to develop a more complete understanding of the world. Human geography is also known as anthropogeography and is a branch of geography which deals with the human beings and their communities, cultures, economic activities and relationship between human and natural environment by studying their relations and across the spaces. However, man and environment relationships are observed from diverse angles by various schools of human geographers. So, this relationship has been studied and analyzed from a number of different perspectives and views. Each and every subject have a need of systematic rules, methods, techniques and system for appropriate and scientific study. This discipline has been passed through different stages of conceptual development in geographical thinking and approaches. There are several approaches in human geography which can be categorized and studied, that includes traditional approaches and contemporary approaches. The traditional approaches in human geography include systematic approach, regional approach, historical approach, environmental approach and possibilistic approach. The systematic approach chooses a particular aspect of physical or human phenomena, a defined geographical space. The studies exhibit it in an orderly manner according to a system or plan. As per 𝗧𝗧𝗧, a German scholar, started the movement and carried by Ferdinand Richthofen, favoring the application of genetic approach to deal with man-nature relationship. Similarly, Rädzel observed the earth as an integral whole and interacting unity and considered human geography systematically and from a Darwinian point of view. Systematic approach is after useful to consider spatial issues through a general system approach. A general system approach is a group of fundamental elements bound together by specific linkages or connection. In general, a system consists of a set of entities with specification of relationship between entities and their environment. In early period, geographers have predicted forms of systems, but approaches are more philosophical rather than practical. This development is credited to Ludwig von Bertalanffy, the development of general system theory. The credit goes to R.J. Schorle, who is the first geographer to introduce general system theory in geography. This approach applied to isomorphism, the concept of open and closed system of geography. Schorle exclusively explained the application of the concept of allometry to show that development rate of a component of an organism is proportional to the growth of the whole. Geographers use systems to develop analytical models with which they pursue to comprehend and describe spatial patterns and interaction. For instance, human geographers employ the systems model to observe the patterns of human migration, the diffusion of ideas, the spread of information. Most of the geographers are concerned in recognizing, elucidating and forecasting the flows in physical and human systems, and they pursue to recognize, describe and forecast cycles and more patterns. Moreover, geographers are interested with variation in flows, cycles and patterns, such as variations are indicators of possibly important amendments in major system. Coming to the second approach, the regional approach. This approach is based on the fact that the surface of the earth is divided into a mosaic of various regions, each of which has a specific character as a consequence of the symbiosis between the physical environment and the society occupying it. This approach is introduced by 𝗪𝗏𝗪. It is basically related to patterns and processes by considering the relationship between human beings and natural environment. This is better expressed in any cultural landscape. Analysis of patterns and process, they express the spatial organization in environmental space. Regional geography began its emergence after influenced by work of Darwin on origin of species in 1859. The work of Darwin broke connection between natural theology and geography and led to the rejection of geographical work on the basis of teleological approaches, laying the groundwork for modern ways of conceptualizing the relationship between human beings and their natural environment. The impact of Darwin by providing renewed simulation for the doctrine of environmental determinism, according to which human actions are and activities are determined by the environment. In the earlier 20th century, 𝗏𝗏 established a regional school in France and emphasized on the relationship between humans and immediate surroundings by studying small homogeneous places popularly known as space. In 1905, Herbertson has anticipated the scheme of natural regions of the world, which is the supportive of 𝗏𝗏's concept. The scheme of natural regions or the purpose of economic, social and political with physical setting presented by 𝗏𝗏. In France, Herbertson, Fawcett and Unsted; in England, Whittlesey; in America and Geddes in England put forward the idea of regionalism, whereas Fleur presented the human regions concept. Contemporary geographers stated that the regional concept is relatively clear and compared with many troublesome concepts of social sciences. According to Vance, the region is a homogeneous area with a physical and cultural characteristic distinct from those of neighboring areas. Similarly, Witkowski and Klossov defined the region as a complex spatial socio-economic system characterized by a stable combination of political forces and possessing a specific complex of features. Regional approaches immediately after the emergence very much impacted by determinism, gradually moved within geographical studies in other direction, permitting for the study of the interaction between human beings and the environment without looking causal linkages between the two, and contributing human geographers a clear and well defined objective of the study, having as key themes the concept of region and the interaction between humans and environment. In this way, drastically changing the discipline. So, coming to the third aspect, historical approach. The historical approach represents the temporal trend or the direction of growth stages. In this analysis, process is construed as a set of rules which renovates map forms over a period of time. This concept encompasses the study of cultural geography, diffusion of innovation, geography of time, process, form, approach. In the 5th century, Herodotus, who is known as father of history, in his works discourse was on how the Nile river delta formed, which evidences the earliest example of historical geography. Historically, geography which studies the past geographies continued without progress till the end of 17th century. Philip Clover, the founder of historical geography, in his work A Historical Geography of Germany, contributed to the discipline by combining classical knowledge with knowledge of the land. In the 19th century, the geography importance as the basis for appreciating history was imparted in several universities, especially in United Kingdom. In 1930s, historical analysis gained much importance by the study of occupations of human beings of a particular space over historic time intervals started by D.S. Whittlesey and C.O. Sawyer. The Institute of British Geographers and Association of American Geographers, by establishing the Historical Geography Research Groups and the Journal of Historical Geography, assisted to justify the historical approach in geography. So, coming to the next one, the environmental approach. The environmental approach studies geography since very commencement and changed significantly. Views of this approach are very much comparable, that is, environment monitoring all activities of human beings such as psychological, economic, social and political, etc. Frequently, geographers approach the analysis of the dynamics of environment from the standpoint of natural sciences. The role of society in the environment endure a main theme, but activities of human beings are analyzed as on the several interconnected mechanisms of environmental changeability or variation. In general, deterministics consider human beings as passive agents on which the environment factors are actively performing and controlling their attitude, decision making process, even lifestyle. This progress of determinism afforded a new dimension through some scientific validation of the deterministic concept. Friedrich Ratzel, by his works Anthropogeography and Political Geography, 𝗖𝗍 Semple's influence of geographic environment, Huntington and Mackinder with their works influenced the determinism in early period of 20th century. Environmental approach was criticized and gave way towards the concept of possibilism after World War II. Possibilistic approach. The possibilism doctrine attempts to describe the relationship of a human being with the natural environment in a diverse way. The concept was first developed by Blasch during the early 20th century, but the possibilism term was first coined by Felébret in 1932, who is a French scholar. The possibilism places human being at a top level of esteems it as an active agent. The possibilists think that nature is never more than advisor. Human beings, by their skills and technological innovations, are capable to modify the difficulties of nature which come in progress, and believe that there are no limitations to human choice in the land use. The possibilism replaced a long legacy of environmental determinism in geographical thinking, which held that the physical environment places an all encompassing influence on human actions and activities, such that all of human life is dependent on the natural environment in the characterization of the organism of earth. A central belief in possibilism states that with the development in the knowledge and technology of a cultural group, there is a corresponding growth in the options available by which they can interact with the natural environment. Out of this, the Vidalian approach, the possibilistic view of environment relates developed and represented a middle course between the views of the French sociologist Émile Durkheim, who proposed that the study of social morphology, and the German geographer Ratzel. In other words, this approach to the environment followed a middle course between strict environmental determinism and extreme possibilism, and the view that society and nature stood out as adversaries in the man environment confrontation was rejected by Blasch. For Blasch, human was part of living creation, that is nature, and therefore its most effective collaborator. Lucien Febvre, a French historian, supported views of Blasch in his famous phrase, "There are not necessities but everywhere possibilities, and man as master of these possibilities is the judge of their use." The point of view attempts in the human in the first place, and he is the one who takes the decision. The contemporary geographical possibilism begins with cultural inference, as in how the observations and views executed by society on human beings in fact determine how human societies interact with the natural environment. Contemporary society is distinct from the previous mechanical societies where the rules were more comprehensible, and instead it is highly differentiated and organized. As such, there is a necessity form of epistemological critique of both human societies and their interaction with the natural environment. The contemporary approaches in human geography are ecological approach, spatial approach, behavioral approach, humanistic approach, welfare approach and Marxist approach. The ecological approach, this is an approach in human geography which is mainly concerned with massive interacting system between human and environment. Burroughs, a pioneer of ecology, declared that geography is the science of human ecology. He also stated that the concentration of geographers should be on human ecology, which is a subfield of ecology, that is a science that study the relationship between the living organisms and their natural environment and among organisms. The ecological approach to the distributions associate psychological characters of organisms with pertinent environmental variables. Each organism has particular psychological acceptances and necessities. Stoddard, another devotee of ecology, expressed with the formal development of new ecological science, there were many attempts to restate fundamentals of human activities in biotic terms. In the early 19th century, human ecology was applied for the study of man and environment for human species in the web of life or the natural economy. In the recent past, the holistic ecological approach has initiated this acceptance. In order to achieve this objective, the biotic indicators, living organisms could be employed in monitoring the environmental programs for different applications, like forecast warning of environmental issues, recognize the causal relationship between the potential factors of alteration and resulting biotic impacts, assess the general state of environmental stress by their numerous ways of responses, and estimate the measures of restoration efficiency on the health of biological system. So, the fundamental knowledge of ecology shift to applied ecology has always been the motive of ecologist. This demands simplification, but accuracy from the elucidation of an observed fact of ecology to the conceptualization. In a simple way, indicators of diversity, indicators of similarity and biological indicators look to be the most fascinating and beneficial. Coming to the second one, the spatial approach. The spatial approach is a new approach in human geography, which also known as locational analysis or approach focuses on spatial organizations. In 1950s, this approach has been started in USA, and Harold McCarty, John Weaver, W. L. Garrison, Edward Ullman and Stewart were the important advocates of the spatial approach. Since the quantitative techniques applied in analyzing this approach is treated as quantitative approach, the usage of explanatory models and regression, correlation and variance analysis etc. have been upsurged in this approach. The spatial analysis uses the concept of location, distance, space, accessibility and spatial interaction. So, in mid 50s, the locational analysis with the use of quantitative techniques and methodologies and with space concept as fundamental variable affecting both organization and operation of society and behavior of its individual acquired much popularity. The next one, behavioral approach. This is an approach to human geography and in specific to the process accountable for spatial behavior of human beings, which particularly attract on behavioralism as a key to understanding the spatial behavior of humans. The behavioral approach is deep rooted in the world as perceived rather than in the world of reality. According to this approach, the process of decision making is based on assigning a particular value to the geographical environment by the human factor. This means that it is not the actual environment, but the perceived environment on the basis of which the decisions are taken. Hence, understanding the behavior of humans and its role in creating variable spatial patterns is necessary for realizing and describing the spatial patterns of human activity and habitation of the earth. Scholars like Tate, Wolpert, Gould, Harvey, White and Downs were the most important advocates to this behavioral approach. Coming to humanistic approach, this approach differentiated by the central and active part of it gives geography human awareness, human agency, human consciousness and human creativity. It attempts to understand meaning, value and the human significance of life events. During 70s, the restoration of humanism in geography due to deep dissatisfaction with more mechanistic models emerged during the revolution of spatial science. Humanistic geography sought to be more than a simple critical philosophy. In 1978, Annie Butimer attempted to bring forward the Vidalian tradition or approach and stated that any spatial unit should be studied from a local perspective. In 1980s, several humanistic approaches have been advocated. However, this approach is mainly based on three philosophies: idealism, phenomenology and existentialism. So, what is idealism? Idealism as a counter to postulates of positivism. Harris and Guick advocated the philosophy of idealism. The idealism is a system of philosophy which regards reality as residing in or constituted by the mind. This philosophy limits human understanding to perception of external objects. The idealism philosophy combines two propositions. First, a metaphysical proposition which states that an idea or a mental construct had a particular duration which was, however, independent of material things and processes. And the second one, an epistemological proposition which believed that knowledge was derived indirectly from the subjective human experiences of a world and was an outcome of human thinking and ideas. Coming to phenomenology, in 70s, the philosophy of phenomenology was much popular among the human geographers than the idealism. However, the term was first coined by Sawyer in 1925. This philosophy became popular in 1970s when Ralph first attempted to introduce the phenomenological approach within geography. Coming to existentialism, existentialism coined by Paul Sartre, the famous existentialist, to refer to a range of mid 20th century European philosophers who studied the conditions of humanity. Apart from that, Camus, Marcel, Jaspers, Buber, Ortega, who promoted a historical genre based on existential conditions. This approach identified man is responsible for his own actions and is free to choose his development and action. Soren identifies that existentialism is acknowledge of non-causality of human interaction with environment, and it also gives room to the free will and thereby the responses, while they are quantifiable and can be explained objectively. This approach has logically inconsistency in a sense, while accommodating free will and at the same time objectively for interpretation of the pattern. That does not give the objective reason for the emergence of the pattern. Coming to the welfare approach, this is the contemporary approach to human geography which focuses mainly on spatial disparities among the regions, countries and social groups and territorial justice. This approach destined up with the rise of radical geography in 1960s, emphasizing the need to recognize and describe the existence of poverty, hunger, crime and other forms of discrimination and disadvantages. A revolution towards welfare approach in the contemporary human geography was indicated by Smith, and he focused on current welfare configurations regarding who gets what, where and how could be judged against alternatives. Welfare approach developed as a possible reaction to positivism, quantitative revolution and model building, which was thought to be insufficiently concerned with contemporary problems of human societies. So, this paved way Marxist approach. The Marxist approach in human geography arose in 1970s as a reaction to capitalism. This approach is a perspective within historical materialism, which is centrally concerned with ways in which the space, production and landforms concerned in the reproduction of specific social formation. Its main emphasis is on unequal development, regional disparities, deprivation, discrimination, exploitation and environmental degradation of the workers by those who own the means of production. The Marxist approach in human geography is on the basis of 4 points, which as follows. First one, describing the means by which capitalists exploited workers. Second one, advocating a change from private ownership to state controlled property. Third one, denouncing religion as the opium of the people. And the fourth one, preparing for the inevitable revolution that when it came would eliminate the class system. In this philosophy, many human geographers strongly felt that their work should be mainly focused on social, environmental problems and contribute to solution to these problems. The growth of traditional and contemporary approaches to human geography is owed to changing aims of human geography from the pattern of description of human phenomena to comprehend the processes working behind these patterns. Since the focus of human geography is on the interrelationship between human and environment, the entire debatable revolves around resource exploitation, need for survival of humans and their concentration would be on greater gains than meager personal benefits. Nowadays, no doubt the reviving determinism has had the greatest impact, but possibilism also had significant impact on discipline of human geography. The nature society dichotomy resulted several approaches in different periods and their places, and it accompanied the whole history of geography. Recently, the research on human environment relationship reappeared owing to the discourse of global climate change. Several scientists denoted the risk and unscientific nature of classical deterministic thought. However, the ecological approaches used in anthropology and archaeology gave an alternative which emphasizes the active role of people reacting to climate changes, being in a dynamic relation with their own environment, they form and transform it. The main argument of environmental determinism states that an area's physical characteristics like climate have a substantial impact on psychological outlook of its inhabitants. These different outlooks then spread throughout a population and help define the overall behavior and culture of a society. The possibilism says that the true and only geographical problem is that to utilization of possibilities. Essence of possibilism is that nature provides possibilities and man utilizes them according to his culture, tradition and levels of socio-economic development. The basic emphasis of welfare geography is on which who gets what, where and how. The who suggests a population of an area under review, that is a city, a region, a nation. The what refers to various facilities and handicaps enjoyed and endured by the population in the form of services, commodities, social relationship, etc. The where refers to the differing living standards in different areas, and how reflects the process by which the observed differences arise.